and welcome to this video which will show you how to use the spreadsheet, which has got a number of different checklists available for you. Spreadsheets are great because you can add extra columns, extra rows, you can scroll across, it makes it a lot easier. So the first one on this spreadsheet is the checklist for credible sources. So you can use it as a reminder, use that for ticks or put an X in the box if you wish to. So it talks about a variety of different sources that we've explored, things to look out for online sources, and other things to just think about. Within the checklist, you've also got some notes here that you can refer to as well. So that's just a checklist or credible sources of reference. So we move and tab across at the bottom to summary of reading. So this can be used as a place that you can make your notes on of the different sources. So for example, I might be reading a book and I'll put my source in here, so that's the full reference so I don't lose it. Make a note of the key arguments, any quotes, page numbers if relevant. So if you have copied and pasted extracts perhaps from an online book, an ebook, or from a website, then make sure that you use quotation marks, add the page number if it's relevant in there so you don't get muddled up when it comes to transporting it across to an assignment and then have the issue of plagiarism as well. You are encouraged to think about the strengths of the argument and the source. And likewise here the limitations of it as well. If you start to add those strengths and limitations in within your writing, you're demonstrating criticality there as well. Then the last column I've got is synthesis notes, so that might be notes that you start picking up. So after I've put my first book in, source in, my second one, I might start to notice similarities or differences between the arguments presented, and I can write those notes in the synthesis notes part here. In terms of the type of source that you're using to be able to identify those strengths and limitations, then you can look at the critiquing checklist, and that's really what that please note says. So that's really quite useful if you are just preparing any assignment and you want to make notes. You can make the columns wider, just click across and move that there. That's really easy if you want to do that. That's not a problem. Or you can transpose this across to OneNote if you're using that for your note taking, or just use the headings and make your notes on a Word document. It really doesn't matter, but the principles will remain the same. If you were critiquing journals in detail, now this is specifically for students that might be studying a research module, perhaps they're critiquing papers as part of their assignment, or for literature reviews. If it's general sources, if it's a general assignment where you may be just picking up strengths and limitations of an academic paper, for example, or a journal, then I would stick to the summary of reading and that will be enough. But if you are going into detail and that's requested of you, this particular spreadsheet will really help you because it starts to break down the research in more detail. For example, where it's conducted, the purpose, the type, the methodology used, the findings, etc. So again, that's really dependent on the type of module you're studying. And again, here the synthesis of findings. This would be more applicable if you're doing a literature review where you are bringing together and comparing and contrasting the different types of findings that you can use. But if you're just doing a general assignment, that summary of reading, again, you've got synthesis notes here, should be plenty enough for you. For your checklists then, I've got a critiquing source checklist. Let's make that a little bit bigger here. Things to think about: author, content, the written skills. There's a variety of different things that we have covered on this course that you can look out for. So you've got your credible source and now really you're starting to critique that source and explore that in a little bit more detail. And actually, you're encouraged to demonstrate criticality within your assignments. So if you notice something that here it might be an advantage or a strength of the text, or you might identify as a result of looking at this limitations of that, that's something that you may pick up in a small sentence that you might just demonstrate that whilst, for example, you may be using a particular source, you might also identify that they've got a conflict of interest. For example, if it's an industry paper, perhaps it's been sponsored by an employer, perhaps. So that's just a general sources. If you're looking for critiquing journals in detail, make that a little bit bigger, then you may prefer this checklist. Have a read through. We don't expect you to critique absolutely everything, but there might be some key things to think about, or points that you think, actually, I want to include that. This is particularly important for those of you that are conducting a literature review in a dissertation. So you scroll down, you'll see that there's a number of different points, and these are all the points that are already in the section on the courses, but they've just been brought together in one spreadsheet. And the final one, critiquing statistical data here. So if you're looking at stats, things that you might want to think about again, these are all on the course. There's nothing new here, but it's just an easy one place to go to where you can make notes. Again, you won't necessarily pick up everything, but if you can pick up some of those, that will help demonstrate your criticality and critical analysis and evaluation. So some of these have got filters. So for example, I might want to just look at the data analysis section, so I can take off the filters and just filter that through. If I want to do, I can select all. Likewise, if I was just looking for a filter for my notes, I could filter down for notes as well. What you may find is, as you're making notes, when you start writing notes, if it starts going, your writing starts going off into another column, then I encourage you to go to wrap text feature. You can usually right click, or you can find it on the home page. So use wrap text, that keeps it all in there. Sometimes you might want to add bullet points. So if you do and you're on a desktop, then use Alt 7, and the 7 is from the number pad. If you want to use a Mac, then using Alt and 8 should work. Now, if you just want to put some enters in here, so you're typing, you want to add some enters. So on a desktop, it would be Alt and Enter, and for your Mac, Control, Alt, and Enter will work. So I hope you found this video of use. The spreadsheet is really useful. Download it, save it, keep it for next time that you start planning your reading, where you're going to go for your reading, to make sure your sources are credible, and then think about how you can critique those sources as well. Thank you for listening.